Welcome to Scouting Hot Finds Live. This is episode 5 of this new format that we've got. If you're listening to this in podcast form, thank you for listening in. iTunes, Spotify, any of those podcast catchers will get it. Jason Spengler, the SanteeSwapper. Had a few delays with this episode, but with Thanksgiving coming up, I really wanted to get it out before the holidays so that if you're sitting at home, maybe digesting that big Thanksgiving meal, you could tune in and watch this either on YouTube or Facebook, or again, as I mentioned, the podcast. So let me just tell you what we have going on in this show. First off, we're going to have a giveaway. Some of you might remember that last week, the episode 4 giveaway was this really cool Eagle Scout display medal. And we had several people, I think we had 82 different contestants put their name in to win that prize. And so we want to give that away and make sure that we mail it off. Then we have some unboxing videos. I have one that I've pre-recorded, and then I actually have a live unboxing. I'm going to do this package right here that literally just came in a day or two ago. And the big feature tonight is going to be an interview that I recorded with Ryan Losonsky at the Charlotte Trade-O-Ree, focusing on scouting history displays. So I hope all of that sounds interesting to you. So let's get started. Just want to fill you in a little bit on what I've been up to. Last week, I traveled with my mom, who was anxious to get out of the house, to Virginia. We actually went all the way to Winchester, Virginia, which, if you look at a map, is basically on the outskirts of the Washington, D.C. metro. At night in the hotel room, we watched the local news, and sure enough, there was a little thread of some wet winter weather, and they were talking about Winchester being kind of on that far western edge of that metro. The reason why I was there in Winchester was to actually meet with 3 different families who had driven down, 2 from Pennsylvania, 1 from New Jersey, to meet me in order to sell me their scouting memorabilia. And this is kind of unusual. I really try not to travel, given that it takes up so much time, of course, gas, energy, everything else. Most of the time when I'm doing deals with people, buying their collections, it's all done through the mail, which is very easy. But sometimes the families have, for different reasons, would rather meet in person. And so in this case, I was able to line up 3 different families. Funny story, when we got to Winchester a little after 3 o'clock, within the span of 1 hour, we actually met all 3 families. One of them, the first one met us at the hotel. The next one, we had to drive to a restaurant and met them in a parking lot in a restaurant. And then we drove back to the hotel, and the third family was there waiting to meet us. And they were actually staying in the same hotel because they had traveled from New Jersey and wanted to, it was kind of a further drive. So they were spending the night in Winchester as well. So boom, within the span of an hour, got 3 different collections. None of these were really big collections. One of them had some really cool stuff that I was really happy to get, and I'll show that maybe in a future episode, but I don't have it all prepared now for you. All right. The only other thing I've had going on that I wanted to mention is I've sometimes mentioned the Patreon group. Let me go ahead and see if I can pull this guy up. So this is the Patreon group. We call it the Scouting Hot Finds Insiders. And one of the things that we do there is one time per month, we have a Zoom. And so just this past Sunday, we had our first Zoom for the Patreon group, the Insiders. It was really interesting. What we did was we focused on eBay. Can't quite call it a mastermind, but that is a little bit where we're headed with this concept, is that having a monthly meeting. Our next one is scheduled for December 11th on a Sunday. We do them at 8 o'clock on Sunday evenings. Several guys in the Patreon group live out west of where I am in Charlotte. They're in other time zones. And so it's just kind of convenient for everybody to do that. And what we did in this past one was just sat there and really talk shop. Each of us went around and kind of described what we were doing on eBay, a little bit of our background in terms of our strategies and things, how they were different. And one guy doesn't do eBay at all. He's more of a Shopify guy. And so it's really interesting conversation. It lasted about an hour. And unfortunately, I had to kind of pull the plug. I didn't want it to run too much over an hour so we could save some ammunition and have things to talk about in December. So if you're at all interested in something like that or want to support me on Patreon, go to scoutinghotfinds.com. That's the link there that'll get you into the Patreon. So, all right, now it's time to give away this display medal. If you watched episode 4, you would have heard this story already. But this is the odd thing. I won't say that this medal is cursed. I wouldn't you ever use that word. But I have twice before tried to give this Eagle Scout medal away unsuccessfully. I did them at Camp Expos promoting Camp Barstow, the summer camp that I work at as the camp director. And I had this laid out and I told people, put your name in the hat, whatever. and we'll do a drawing. Both times when I drew the person's name out and I tried to reach back out to them through the internet, they wouldn't respond to me. I don't know if it went into their spam folder or whatever, but anyways, this is the third time, and I feel like for sure this will work. So let me take you over to King Sumo, and we will make this selection. So we have right here 82 contestants, and if I click on Ready to Award, we'll get our winner. All right. I don't know who this gentleman is, but it's John, bsa@gmail.com, and he put his hat in there on November 11th. And so we will make sure to reach out to him and give him the prize that he deserves. So, John, congratulations. The first two winners of these giveaways that I've been doing both lived in California. The last guy lived in New York. So I don't know where John lives, but we'll be happy to send him that Eagle medal. Now, of course, this week we do have another giveaway. I've got that on the agenda, but I'm going to wait until after the interview with Ryan Losonsky to kind of roll that out and show you what we're giving away in episode 5. So to be continued. You'll see that in just a second. All right, in every episode of Scouting Hot Finds Live, I want to have unboxings. And so, again, tonight we'll have 2 unboxings. One of those is going to be a very short pre-recorded one that I did earlier, and then we're going to do a live unboxing. So let's go now to that pre-recorded one.
Hey everybody, Jason Spangler, the SanteeSwapper, back with another unboxing. This box came to me from Virginia Beach, Virginia. Doesn't mean that that's where the scouting memorabilia is from. Just means that's where the guy ended up before he sent me this stuff. So I don't have any notes handy that tell me much about this. So let me kind of cut into this. I have to be a little careful. I was cutting into a box earlier today and actually cut a patrol flag. That was a vintage patrol flag. Kind of felt bad about that. Let's slide all this out here and see what we've got. Okay, so it looks like it is going to be from that area. So there's a Tidewater Council. Man, check out this backpack. That is pretty sweet. 2005 National Scout Jamboree, Tidewater Council. And there are obviously some stuff in here. This is a heavy-duty backpack. I don't know if the guy ever used it again, but obviously the Jamboree would have used it. So let me pull these open. I know there's some patches in here. Oop, not on that side. Let's try to go to this other side and find where the zipper's gone to. Aha! Here's the zipper on this side. So get this out. Got this little bag here from the Jamboree. And here's the stack of patches. Okay. So, got this Jamboree neckerchiefs. Probably seen those guys before. Got a nice little ordeal sash there. And then, as you might expect, this is going to be really, really modern stuff. This guy trading at the Jamboree and possibly at the NOAC. Here's a 2002 NOAC jacket patch, so we might have done that. Now, one reason why I was really interested in this was because of some of the spoof patches in here. This guy in particular, Vote for Pedro. You would have to have watched the movie Napoleon Dynamite to get this joke. But I actually know the guy that made this little tiny spoof patch. And I don't know that I've ever had one. I was at the 2005 Jamboree. I saw this spoof patch there, but I do have a weird collection of spoof patches, and I don't think I had this one. So I was looking to get that. He also had a couple of these spoof patches from 2004 NOAC. I wasn't at the 2004 NOAC. That was the year that my daughter was born. So I thought, oh yeah, that's kind of cool to get one of those. Check that guy out, Clehecan Lodge. That's a Brotherhood flap, and I was in Clehecan Lodge. When I lived in Lumberton, North Carolina. Here's a nice little 2-piece set. This guy right here, it's a nice looking set there. And then it's got some shoulder strips here. The spoofers were out, and I know who created these. This is a set of 3 from North Carolina during that 2005 National Scout Jamboree. Then he's got this set here from Blue Ridge Council in South Carolina. Tidewater Council, of course, we'd expect to see that given the back patch we just saw. And then here's a blue heron flap, so that would be the Order of the Arrow Lodge from there. And then a couple of other blue herons here, that guy there, and then a couple from Florida, Similachie, another one from Florida, Timaquan, and then just that's about it, really. I've gone through the whole whole kit and caboodle here. So really tiny collection. I buy collections like this all the time because I never know if there's something in here I'm going to find that I really like. It's ironic that in this case, the Vote for Pedro patch is the one thing that I really was interested in getting. But it's just so random, these collections that I buy. So I don't know that any of you would get excited about getting a spoof patch from 20 some years ago, but that's just how I roll. Thanks very much, Jason Spengler, the SanteeSwapper.
Now, just in case you did not get the vote for Pedro joke, you can go check out the movie Napoleon Dynamite. I believe that's the name of the movie that it comes from. And maybe back in 2005, that was a little more relevant. That's been a little while since that came out. So I wanted to remind you all that you can check out my link tree. If you go to SanteeSwapper.com, that's a real simple one-page link tree that'll show you everything that I have going on in this scouting memorabilia hobby. Might be kind of interesting to go see. Of course, if you're interested in my playlist, Trade-O-Ree calendars, all those things that I've shared in previous episodes, all that is linked up there as well. So I have a live unboxing for you, and this one is kind of interesting in that it just arrived. It's from an Eagle Scout, and I will tell you a sad little story here. So this happens every once in a while. A lot of times when I'm dealing with collections, I would typically say most of the time I'm dealing with an older scouter who is interested in selling their stuff. Maybe there's not people in their family that are really interested in keeping it. The the second most common situation is that I'm dealing with an estate. In other words, someone has passed away, and the family members are looking for someone who's really passionate about scouting history and memorabilia, and would like to buy their memorabilia. This one is not quite those. This belongs to an Eagle Scout who has cancer, and the way that the guy described it to me was he has terminal cancer, and so he was deciding where to make sure that his scouting memorabilia ended up, so that the family in doing the cleaning up and the throwing out didn't dispose of it. So this is really kind of interesting to look at. This guy sent me pictures and we agreed to a price. Check is on the way to him, and then he mailed me this stuff right here. So I will try to sort of share with you a little bit of what we've got, and kind of as I usually do, try to make it, just a little bit of scouting history here as well. So here's his sash. Now, this is kind of interesting, obviously, for the spacing here. There really is not a rhyme or reason to the spacing. I've seen this in other sashes where people will do things like this, but he was an Eagle Scout, so he's going to have 21 merit badges, but they're all spread out. And right here, the first one he's got the top is painting. That one is actually pinned in. Yeah, it's got safety pins holding it in. So that might have been one that he got towards the end, and maybe he didn't have room for it on the way he had done the sash. It looked like he kind of got finished, but all of these are what we would call 1960s era merit badges. You can see that these have this green quill, olive green background, and that is typical of the 1960s merit badges. And so you see here, he does have beekeeping, which is pretty interesting. I actually had someone come to my house like 2 days ago to buy something from me off Facebook Marketplace, and the guy was a legit beekeeper in Lamar, South Carolina, and got to talking to him a little bit about beekeeping, which is interesting. Archery, music going on down here, pet care, consumer. Right here we have agri or forestry, actually. So you get that one in rowing, and then this one with a little frog on it that gets some people. Anybody want to guess what that is? I'll give you a couple seconds. So that is zoology. You would think it would be like reptile, amphibian, something or other, but that's actually zoology. That's not a common one either to earn. So there's some nice merit badges there. And then here we have is he was in Nebraska. That's where he got his, and apparently had his eagle with another scout. And so here is his Eagle Scout presentation case, and we've got here the medal with. He also had the God and Country Award, which is the Protestant Religious Medal. So those are together as well, and then the patch, which is still sewed in there. So, and this is a sterling silver medal. So most of you would know that back in the day, all of the Eagle medals were sterling silver until they changed that some time ago. So that is the entire collection. but I thought you all might find it interesting because, again, a little bit of the story involved, and then kind of need to see a full Eagle Scout collection. So, speaking of collections, now I want to introduce Ryan Losonsky. Ryan and I met, I think we have met way before, but the most recent connection was at the Occoneechee Trade-O-Ree, which is in Camp Durant in August. And Camp Durant, Ryan came and sat down at my table. We got to talking, and I just didn't realize the connection that we had, where he had kind of been following me online, gotten some ideas that I had put out years ago about building displays, and he had through the army had moved to that area and then retired from the army and was basically had his house and his family there in that part of North Carolina. And Ryan has spent a lot of time and energy into building out displays. And so, in getting ready for the Charlotte Trade-O-Ree, I asked Ryan if he would be willing to bring his displays. He brought, you'll hear it in this video, 90 panels, maybe it's over 90 panels of displays to the Charlotte Trade-O-Ree. And it really was a highlight of the event, along with Russell Smart, who brought his stuff, and then Doug Chambers brought a display as well. So that was tremendous to see all this stuff. So I wanted to interview Ryan, and I'll come back and talk more at the end after we hear from Ryan and kind of just again reinforce the main points that we got from this. So here's my interview with Ryan Losonsky. Hey, Jason Spangler, the SanteeSwapper here with Ryan Losonsky at the Charlotte Trade-O-Ree, and I invited Ryan here because he has a passion that I'm actually hoping to adopt, and that is taking your scouting memorabilia and turning it really into a traveling display that you can bring, share with people. We just happen to have a lot of extra room this year, and so I invited you to come. How many panels did you bring, you think?
I think I probably brought about 90.
90! This is awesome. And so Ryan and I have been talking back and forth, and he has a few ideas that I think are really neat that I want to share with people because it's kind of influenced some things that I'm planning on doing. And one of those is really around this idea. There's a couple things. One would be the idea of taking your memorabilia and sharing it so people can see the history. But the other is, in our hobby, a lot of people have this idea of sort of perfectionism, where if I'm missing a patch, if I'm missing this, if I don't have the complete collection, I can't possibly display it. And you have really kind of broken the glass on that with what you've done. And I think it's great. I want you to tell us about that, because I think that so many people maybe are sort of held back by thinking that their collection is not good enough to display or share. And maybe just kind of talk about where your theory came from and what you did.
Sure. So, Jason, I started out as a young scout collecting. Went all the way through, got my Eagle Scout, and really one of the things that I wanted to do was keep the history of scouting alive. I always enjoyed going to different events and trading and listening to the old timers talk about all their collections and the information, or all the stuff that they had boxed away back home. But unfortunately, so many times you never have a chance to see it. And what I wanted to do was to build my collection so that I could actually display it and take it to different events and be able to, in some cases, bang it around, put it in a trailer, put it in the back of a car, and take it to whether it's troop meetings or whether it's camporees or whether it's OA fellowships, any of the above. I wanted to have it mobile enough so that I could move that around. And then in addition to that, with what you had said, there is the fear that your collection isn't good enough, but that's not how I wanted to look at it. And oftentimes there's so many different issues, especially these days with the scout memorabilia, all the different color borders and different things. At the end of the day, trying to take the collection that you have, in some cases, whether you pin it to a backing board like I did and put it into frames, or just taking and putting it out on a table to show others. That's really more inspiring, I think, to a lot of folks, because a lot of folks don't even may have never seen the items that each of us have in our own personal collections, and I've found that even though it's taken a considerable amount of time and effort to try to put this stuff together, by putting it in these frames and taking it to different shows, I've been able to jog the memory of a lot of old scouters and help bring back some really good memories. And even within my displays, it's kind of a labor of love, but I've really tried to put heart and soul into it, and just be able to show it more as a collage of different events. So behind us, you can see we have the different lodges that I liked, and to be honest, why did I like them? I liked the
That's a pretty good looking totem there. That's
exactly.
a scary cat.
I like the totem. You know, I like turtles, so I saw it, and I happened to come across some of these pieces, and I wanted to put them together. And then from there, it kind of evolved into, hey, I want to see what different stuff I can get from that lodge, and it gives me a different opportunity to hunt for different things.
Right.
Where it's not necessarily as expensive. I'm not trying to get a name and number list for the Order of the Arrow, or even with my CSP collection, I've tried to put it by state, so that, hey, as I get them, I just try to, you know, you can start with one from each state, and then evolve it, and you don't have to have everything, you don't have to have the nicest pieces, but as long as you have something to fill in. And then in addition to that, one of the things that I've really started to do for some of those really unique, hard to get pieces that we may not be able to get our hands on quite yet, even though I say never, but
You'd be surprised.
In many cases,
things fall into your lap.
Things fall into your lap. Absolutely. What I've done is I've gotten pictures off of the internet. A lot of scouts and scouters are putting it on. You know, your website's a great example. Facebook's a great example. A lot of different resources are out there where you can look at it, you can research it, you can see what the image is, and then from there I'll take a HP LaserJet printer and print it off using photo paper, which seems to really have that gloss and really shine up, and then I'll cut it out and I'll pin it into the frame. So I may never ever have that actual patch, but within the frame it's kind of filled rather than having the blank.
Well, it fills in the blanks for the story, right? So I'll try to put a picture in of your Air Scout stuff as well, but among the Air Scout stuff, some things are just very, very hard to get.
Absolutely.
And this is kind of what I think holds people back. Rather than waiting until you have the complete collection, you have put the collection together and displayed it with those color copies as the filler. And I've seen this done in other places where, like, sometimes if you have a display hanging on a wall, it's nearly impossible to tell from any distance that that's a color photocopy. We have that at my home camp. We have some old patches from the 40s and early 50s, and we have the color photocopies. You'd never know. So I think a lot of people could adopt that idea. And the other thing I want to talk about, though, and this is not exactly an example of this, but in some of the other panels that I'll throw up, you have incorporated not just the patch.
Absolutely.
And this is something that I think a lot of us are guilty of, is we think of the patch collection is the scouting history, that is the display. Like, people are only going to want to see my, complete collection of patches. But again, I'm trying to describe this. You've kind of broken that glass, that idea, and done completely different. So talk a little bit about that.
So absolutely. Well, when we all start out, we tend to really focus our attention on trying to go after the patches and to try to trade for them. That's what we know as, hey, there's a list, there's different fellowships, there's different camporees.
You're a patch collector.
By year. I am
so you have a checklist.
Correct.
Yeah, and that's
so that's what we go after, and then we start working on the frames and putting it in. What I found was it's a two-way approach. One, I wanted to keep the history of scouting alive, so I wanted to include the additional material. Some of these lodges, some of these councils have put out some beautiful paperwork and some really good history to really explain whether it's the event or whether it is just imagery that went along with it. And one of the other aspects is including photos into it. So we all are living in a digital age, but obviously prior to that, we have all these old photos that are I don't want to say rotting away, but collecting dust, exactly, sitting in tubs. But when I start to add that, it really brings to life that patch based on the fact that patch was an event where scouts and scouters and airmen attended, participated, they had fun, they did different things. And it really helps to explain the whole dichotomy of what we do within the scouting movement.
And I think too, having looked around your frames, that some of the things you've done, for example, and I'll flash pictures up, but where you have, for example, 1997 Jamboree,
Yeah.
and the key piece in the middle is the map, the Jamboree
Absolutely.
map. So some of the paperwork that goes with it, and then you have the JSBs. Or with your council strip collection, you have really a pretty good looking map of the state, like it's multiple states together, and then you have the patches around that go with the states. So, if you think about an 11-year-old's eyes, they're going to understand, oh yeah, Ohio's next to Pennsylvania, next to Kentucky, whatever, and then they'll kind of get, oh, these are all the councils. It helps tell the story.
Absolutely.
Versus just some of us that are pretty pure would be like, yes, I have the first CSP from every council in Ohio, or whatever.
Right.
But I think it's a neat way to go.
Well, I appreciate that. One of the things that I wanted to try to do was to try to push my displays, push my collection to try to maybe appease the public a little bit, and try to have them be able to see things that they could recognize, that they could relate to. Whether it's a Trade-O-Ree, whether it's a fellowship. I'm a transplant, so I'm originally out of Baltimore, Maryland.
Right.
And I've moved down to North Carolina now based on the military, and I moved all over the country and the world. So having people come in and be able to see my collection, they're coming from all over the place.
Right.
And it's neat where at certain events, I'll happen to have one of my frames that I put together because, hey, I like the totem, and put it together, and they will start telling me all about the history, how they were a lodge officer, or hey, they were part of this council, and it really jogs their memory, and that's what I want. I want people to enjoy the frames, enjoy the traveling museum, see it, enjoy it, and be able to remember some of the good memories that they may have, or be able to inspire them to try to push for the heights. I want every scout to try to shoot for eagle, and I want every adult leader to be able to support the troops, support the council, support the lodge, and try to do their best.
No, it's great. Well, listen, we're going to record a couple more segments of this, but I think that's a good way to put a pin in it for now.
Yes, sir. Thanks.
You. All right, I hope you enjoyed that interview with Ryan Losonsky. I actually have a couple of other pieces of that were recorded. You'll note at the end there that I kind of alluded to that, and I'll use those in future episodes of Scouting Hotlines Live to kind of share more of his story. But the thing that I really want to hammer home is this topic that we talked about right there in the beginning, and that is that you do not have to have a complete display before you go out and share it with the rest of the scouting community. In Ryan's displays, for example, he had several items that were color photocopies of items that were rare and valuable that he has not been able to add to his collection yet. But by having the color photocopy, he was able to tell the story, which after all is probably really the most important part of doing this. And so just think about that. I think that's probably something that even I suffer with, is thinking that if I don't have everything done and finished and perfect, that I can't put it out. I'm reminded of a few other people I know, friends who I've talked to them about doing scouting displays, and they sort of, were conscientious about the fact that it wasn't all complete, it wasn't all together, it wasn't perfect yet. And I think perfect can really be a problem when you're talking about scouting memorabilia, because really what we're trying to do by showing other people our collections is to share the history, maybe inspire them to, reconnect with scouting, stay with scouting, or if not anything else, just to have some memories of their time. And so thinking that it has to be perfect is really missing the mark. That's really just all in your head, thinking that it has to be perfect because you have to have everything checked off the checklist. So hopefully what Ryan has done will kind of give you a little inspiration, as it has for me, that I don't have to get to perfection before I share my scouting memorabilia with people. And this really did hit to home with me recently when I was at a scouting event, and all of a sudden there were all these young patch traders around me. And when I say young, I mean like 13, 14, 15-year-old patch traders, sort of the thing that is hard to find in our hobby. And in talking to them and trying to find out what was what got them started on this patch bug. And of course, it was other collectors a little more advanced than them, maybe guys who were like 17, 18, 20 years old. They had gone to scout meetings, they had gone to events, and they had brought their collection and showed their collection off. And so that's what kind of inspired these kids to want to do it as well. And so again, just planting seeds here, as I apparently planted a seed with Ryan back, I think it was in 2014 or 2015, when I made a video about how to frame up your Jensen boxware frames and turn them into a display. Now he has hopefully planted some seeds here with what he's done. So, anyways, as I said, more to come from Ryan Losonsky. Thank you for being patient while I got episode 5 all finished and ready. Sometimes I have plans of doing these things very regularly on Wednesdays, but it's not always possible. So I have to make it fit where it can in my schedule. But, if I look at the numbers, this will, going back to the podcast, this will be the 5th episode of my podcast that I put out here this fall. And probably, I haven't done the math on this, but probably that is more podcasts than I published in all of the last 2 years put together. So even if I can't stay on a strictly weekly schedule, I'm still able to put out more content than I have in years and also share some cool things with you guys. So I've already talked to a few other people that I want to do video interviews with, and hopefully that will all get lined up. Again, just sharing out my link tree, Jason Spangler, the SanteeSwapper. Go there to SanteeSwapper.com. You can see things that I have going on. Don't forget also that you can check out my Trade-O-Ree calendar there. And the link there is scoutpouchcollectors.com/prize. All right, now it's time to see what our new giveaway is going to be. You didn't think I was going to forget, did you? All right, let me reach over here and grab it. So some of you will recognize this. I got this in a collection. In fact, this came out of the collection I just brought home from Pennsylvania. And I know I already have a few sets of this myself, so it's something that definitely is extra for me. This is a souvenir set that the Boy Scouts put out 50 years ago almost at the 1973 National Scout Jamboree. It's a souvenir set of Jamboree coins, of course, dating back to has the 1937 all the way through, and it's sort of double-sided there. So it's really in a nice little presentation case. I've had several of these. They're probably something that I, put out, and it's just one of those things. Like I felt like I already had this, but definitely somebody who was watching on the show, if you didn't have this Jamboree coin set, that might be kind of interesting. So all you have to do again is go to scoutpouchcollectors.com/prize. That is the link to get into that King Sumo giveaway, and this will run for 1 week, and then we will have the winner drawn on the next show. So I hope you will decide to participate in that. As always, feel free to leave comments, whether they be on Facebook, on YouTube. Would love to see what kind of comments you have, or you can send me email directly. Let me know what topics you're interested in, or if there's anything you'd want to see me do differently on the show, or continue to do. That's great. Would love to see that as well. So, Jason Spangler, the SanteeSwapper. Thank you very much for watching and for listening to Scouting Hot Finds Live.